Hello and welcome to the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, where we are now in our third season of helping everyday runners fuel better, run smarter, and recover faster so you can reach your full performance potential. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchuk, dietitian, running coach, twin mom, and fellow runner too. As the owner of Stephanie Natchuk Performance Nutrition, I've spent over a decade helping runners learn to fuel their bodies better, unlock their best running performances, and establish healthier relationships with food and exercise. This podcast is all about helping you become the very best runner you can be by teaching you the running-specific nutrition, training, and recovery strategies that you need to reach all your wildest health, fitness, and running goals. If you're ready to reconnect with your love of running, join me each week as I share my best advice, interview guest experts, and talk to everyday runners who are conquering their goals by tapping into the power of performance nutrition, with a side of some myth busting too. And if you're looking for even more tips, resources, and strategies for runners, you can find me on Instagram at Steph the Runner's Dietitian or by visiting www.stephanienatchuk.com. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Start today's episode, I just want to really quickly invite you to download my free fueling guide and strength training guides for runners. Currently available as a handy little bundle for you all in one at the link in the show notes. So just to give you more information, in this free fueling guide, you're going to find my top fueling tips for runners. As well, in there, I've put together some meal ideas and even a couple of recipes for your pre and post run fuel. We've also got some suggestions for what to fuel with during your run to make sure that you just have the best overall performance possible. If you've really been struggling to understand what to eat, when, where to start when it comes to supporting your running with better nutrition, this guide is here to help you kickstart your running journey. The other guide that I mentioned is my strength training guide for runners. We know that runners are notoriously bad at consistently getting their strength training in. So this guide includes both a PDF resource, it's got some tips, some guidelines, as well as a link to my series on YouTube where I walk you through all the exercises in this program, giving you some suggestions on proper form, how to modify if needed, how to progress things if needed. This is a really great beginner's guide to strength training for runners who want an effective but efficient full body workout that is going to support the key muscles and movements you need to run stronger and help stay injury free. So once again, both of these guides are available as a handy little bundle. So you just click on the link in the show notes, enter your email address once, and both of the free guides are going to get sent to your inbox right away. I really hope that you find these guides helpful and that they support you and your running goals in the most effective way possible. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, where I am very, very excited to be sitting down today with Deanna Rempel, and she's going to introduce herself and tell us why she is here to talk to us today about understanding air quality index and what it means for you as a runner. And this, of course, is a very important and timely episode, having it take place here in the summertime when a lot of us over the last number of years have, seen this sort of new rise of needing to be aware of things like air quality index. We're seeing a lot of smoke from forest fires blowing through different parts of North America. I'm seeing a ton of conversations being had online about air quality index and wildfire smoke and what it means and what we should be doing about it. People having different schools of thought around how to manage air quality index and running and whether or not you should be outside or shouldn't be outside. What are the risks? And then, of course, events getting canceled and things like that from that perspective of air quality and having air quality concerns. So I am very excited for this episode here with Deanna because I have so many questions for you. So thanks for being here today.
Of course. Thanks for having me,
Mm.
Stephanie. So my name's Deanna, and I'm a registered respiratory therapist who is also, I love running. It's my favorite activity to do for exercise, and it's a fabulous hobby of mine. Just absolutely love it. So I work in a hospital here in Winnipeg, and I've also worked up in northern communities in our province as well as in BC. I've worked in intensive care unit, the ER, operating rooms with patients of all different ages and who have all kinds of respiratory health issues.
Okay, okay. I wonder if we ever worked together because I used to work at Health Sciences Center. Like I was a dietitian there for
Oh,
about 5 years. And I actually, one of my units that I had for a while was the IICU. I don't know if you ever covered the IICU,
yeah,
but
I've definitely, 100%.
okay.
100%. I
Yeah.
loads. I wonder, maybe.
Yeah. So anyway, I was the dietitian there, but you know what? A lot of it was during the pandemic. So like we were just covered head to toe in like masks and all the gear and everything. Like you didn't even see people's
Yeah.
faces
Oh,
during that
most likely
time.
we worked together then. 100%.
Yeah.
Because
Too funny.
I was very much working all the time in the COVID years because
I believe that. I believe that.
respiratory therapist,
Yes.
respiratory illness, yeah, goes together.
Yeah. So actually, I want to back up here a little bit. Tell us more about what a respiratory therapist is and what exactly you do, because there's probably a lot of people who don't know.
Yeah, for sure. So, respiratory therapists, so we're basically the heart and lung specialists in healthcare. So, typically, where you can find us would be working in intensive care units, working on the ventilators. And yes, this was very, very relevant during the years of the pandemic where we had a lot of people who needed significant respiratory care. The lungs are super, super fragile. They're probably one of the most fragile organs we have. And the lungs are made up of like alveoli, those tiny little air sacs, super, super small, like 2 millimeters wide. So, what respiratory therapists, or RTs as we're called, we're
Mhm.
responsible for making sure that we protect those lungs when we're basically breathing for you through the machine. We need to make sure we're giving you the right amount of oxygen, making sure you're taking a big enough or small enough breath, and making sure you're breathing as often as you need for your body to heal, as well as eventually getting you off that ventilator and having you breathe completely on your own. We help
Okay.
insert the actual breathing tube. We do diagnostic tests. We do all kinds of stuff in all areas of the hospital. It's all about
Okay.
breathing.
Okay.
They help you breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, when I was thinking of who would be the perfect person to interview this podcast episode, I was like, well, this is so far out of my area of expertise as a, dietitian and running coach. Who better to ask than someone who, specializes in lung health and breathing, and of course, understands the lungs to a higher degree than, just about anybody else in healthcare. And so you mentioned that you also are a runner, which is fabulous. And tell us a little bit more about your history as a runner and what got you into running.
So, how long have I been a runner? So, I started running in my early teenage years. Yeah, like I played a lot of basketball and volleyball, and I just used running to kind of supplement that. But then I found that I really started to enjoy it, and it became less of a chore and more of um, a hobby. And I found it was really good for my mental health, physical health, everything in between. And I used
Yep.
to just do these tiny little short runs around this park by my childhood home. And that only grew into doing relays at the Manitoba Marathon and then fire paramedic half. And then recently I've gotten into trail running, which I absolutely
Mhm.
adore. I've done a couple different trail runs. I think the wildest one I've done so far was in January when we did, it's called Frozen Falcon. You run around the Falcon Ski Ridge
Yeah.
course, and it was minus 35, and I did 25 kilometers just casually. I love it so much. The trails are great. I've gone from road running into trail running.
Yep.
Absolutely love it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and my next run is in autumn, 25 kilometers through Riding Mountain National Park. So,
Oh, that'll be wonderful. That'll
I'm
be
so looking
wonderful.
forward to it. It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so while we're on the topic of, getting outside, getting on the trails, running through some wooded areas where unfortunately, this particular summer has been quite bad for wildfires here in Manitoba, but it always seems that some part of North America is, being really, severely affected each and every summer. And what I've noticed, so when I've been kind of looking at the air quality index statements, air quality warnings, and stuff like that, there's some different systems, different rankings, and kind of different things that you see being utilized. And can you explain for us what is the air quality index system that we use here in Canada?
For sure. So currently, Canada, we use something called the Air Quality Health Index, or AQHI. So basically what this is, it's an index. It was designed by Environment Canada, and it's to help the general population understand what air quality is and how it's going to affect your health. So it has that health component in it. It measures pollutants that are known to be harmful to humans, such as ozone, particulate matter, and nitrogen dioxide. Those are the three main ones that are harmful to humans that this AQHI takes into account. And this index pays really close attention to the at-risk populations as well, which would be children, the elderly, and people who have a respiratory illness at their baseline, such as asthma or COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
Okay. And so where would those different particulates, I think you said, in the air come from? Where do those come from that we find them in the air that we breathe?
Yeah, for sure. So something like ozone, that happens from aerochemical reactions. So from it being hot outside, even like something as simple as the sunshine. But the one that we're kind of very focused on as like a respiratory therapist and a runner, and when it comes down to lung health, would be the particulate matter, which is a term that I have actually been seeing popping up on weather apps and on the radio. I've heard it like all week long, and throughout the summer as well. So particulate matter, that's where wildfires come into play. So it's particles in the air from anything like soot or ashes, stuff like that. So wildfires, sometimes it's just listed as PM particulate matter. And nitrogen dioxide, that's traffic, like cars and things that have like kind of combusted. Yeah.
Okay. So the particulate matter is like your smoke, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so sometimes you see the air quality health index, which is the ranking system of like low, moderate, high. And I think there's like a scale of numbers attached to it. What I've also seen is like different numbers referenced, like the air quality index, or obviously you'll correct me because I'm not saying this correctly, but is like 75 or 100. And what is that? And what do those numbers mean compared to the AQHI?
Right. Yeah. This can get confusing because it's like you AQI, AQHI, you're like, okay, and one of them says 3 and one of them says 75, and you're like, what am I doing with this? What does this even mean to me? So Canada used to use AQI, Air Quality Index. We no longer use that. The States still uses it. So AQI, it does measure air quality. It's based on specific pollutants. And that's when you're going to see these numbers of like 50, 75, 80, 100, more than 100. So typically 100 and under is a safe level of air quality. Air quality is good. AQHI considers the effects of those pollutants on human health. So AQHI has more of that health factor in it, which in my opinion is far more, it's more accessible to people. It's like, okay, it's 3, but what does 3 mean to me as a person, as a human trying to go outside and exercise or run or even just go outside, as opposed to being, well, it's 80 outside today. And you're like, okay, thanks. What does 80 mean? So it's a little more it's more health focused in Canada with the AQHI.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair
Mhm.
enough. Fair enough. And so on that note, you had mentioned that like under 100 is sort of considered your, I'll say green light in terms
Yeah.
of AQI. What is sort of like, what's good on the AQHI versus like pretty like dangerous, and not just for people who have like lung conditions
Mhm.
or who are at higher risk, but like for anybody, like, you know, your average adult, no lung concerns runner.
For sure, yeah. So AQHI is the 1 to 10. It's technically 1 to 10 plus scale.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you reach 10, it's just rough. So
Yeah. Okay.
and it does split the population into two groups of what we'll call general population, so people without any kind of lung or cardiac issues, and the at-risk population, who would be people who have a
Okay.
pre-existing condition. So for
Yeah.
humans who do not have any heart or lung issues, what I found was 1 to 6 would be considered an okay time for your average person to go outside and do any kind of strenuous activity, such as running,
Okay.
at their leisure, how they see fit for them. But AQHI and Health Canada do say if you start getting symptoms, you might want to reduce, you might want to reassess and see how you feel and make that choice for yourself. But anything greater than 6, 7 to 10, that's considered a high health risk for
Okay.
anybody.
Everybody.
Mhm.
Okay. And what are some of the symptoms that a person like should be on the lookout for, or maybe anticipate in regard to, you know, how the air quality might affect them? Like, are we talking about things that as you're out there doing your run, you're going to notice XYZ and that's telling you that you should stop? Or is this something that like, yeah, you know what, after the run a few hours later, these are the symptoms that you would see, and then that will help you make a better decision or a different decision for tomorrow? What are the symptoms that people should be on the lookout for here?
For sure. So symptoms people should be watching for when they're running outside, and the air quality health index is more of that high or moderate, like if it's 5 or 6. Coughing is a big one. Any kind
Okay.
of eye irritation, so redness or
Mm-hmm.
watery eyes, shortness of breath, and not just your typical when you run, you're short of breath
Yeah.
because you're working, your heart and your lungs are
Yes.
working more, right? To
Yeah.
meet your demand, but really
Yeah.
like not being able to take a full breath in, like
Okay.
worse than when you average like your runs. Of course, it's tricky to breathe when you run, but maybe it
Yeah.
happens way sooner in your run, or you're not
Sure.
like during your run when you're trying to. I mean, when I run and I know that my breathing's getting a little too rapid and shallow for me, I'm like, okay, let's just take a deep breath in. Let's just cool it down. If you like can't
Yeah.
reset like that, that would be a
Yeah.
warning sign. Any kind of
Yeah.
wheezing, so actually
Oh, okay.
hearing yourself breathe, like, and like, oh, my breathing sounds like tight. That's
Yeah.
another big warning sign, as well as any kind of chest pain. That would be a surefire way to be like, okay, we really need to slow down, cut the run short, stop, take
Mm-hmm.
your walk breaks. Yeah,
Yeah.
those would be the
Yeah.
big ones.
And what is happening like at the level of the lung tissue? Like what is happening to the lungs when you're breathing in that kind of particulate matter that's causing those symptoms? Like what's going on in our bodies when we're breathing
Mhm.
that in that's making us have those symptoms?
So the lungs, their main job, their whole world is breathing in oxygen, getting that oxygen into the blood. Carbon dioxide comes back from, it's a byproduct of O2 consumption, and you breathe out CO2. It's the whole thing. What the lungs are doing, gas exchange is what we call it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're running, your heart's beating faster, your blood's pumping faster, everything is going faster, faster, you're breathing faster. So your body already has this huge demand on it to be faster. The heart needs to go faster to get the blood to the organs, which has the oxygen, so your tissues can take in that oxygen and spit out CO2 really quick. So if your lungs are compromised from this particulate matter, smoke, you're breathing that in, your lungs are going to get irritated. They're going to say, what is happening?
Okay.
This is trash air. Like, I'm used to pure
This air
oxygen.
sucks.
This sucks. Like, what are you doing to me? Now I'm getting red. Now I'm inflamed. Now I'm
Okay.
irritated. So I'm going to make you cough it out. All of your, like, and it's going to start kind of settling down into your lungs. So the particulate matter, actually, this is a good point. Particulate matter, there's different sizes of particles. The most dangerous one is 2.5 microns or less in size, because those
Okay.
particles get down to those very distal or very deep airways, right where the lungs, those little alveoli, those little sack of grapes kind of, where they touch the blood vessel, they start to sit there. And then oxygen's like, oh, there's a bunch of smoke and particles here. I can't actually get into the bloodstream. Less oxygen in the blood, less oxygen available for your tissue and your organs. CO2 can't leave your blood because it's like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff in the lungs, a bunch of particles I can't get out. That's not how the body operates. So then that is what's happening at that like molecular level of your lungs. Gas exchange is inhibited.
Okay. And so is this the kind of thing that the body can recover from? Or like once that particulate matter is in the lungs, especially in those deep tissues, like that's it. It's there now and that's where it lives. Or does it eventually get dealt with by the body and can be removed from our system and our lungs can go back to being like totally healthy and clear again?
So the lungs are one of the few organs that once the damage is there, it's there. They're very fragile organs. That being said, we do have an immune system that some of our cells in our immune system can come and do some cleanup. But if it's over this prolonged time and like a lot of particulate matter is getting in there, there will be irreversible damage. More of a long-term thing. Short-term, you might get, your immune system should be taking care of most of this, but there is always that risk. And it's hard to say which run outside in really poor air quality will be that tipping point for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, are we talking about the tipping point to trigger something like developing asthma? Or is this like total, like I'm comparing apples and oranges?
It would be like getting diagnosed with a new asthma. Like your lungs can handle some particulate matter. I mean, that's what your immune system,
adversity.
Yeah, like that's what your immune system is there for. Like it's there to send in the cleanup crew and be like, you don't belong, you don't belong, you don't belong, you don't belong. But I mean, you think of people who are in like a really bad house fire, like horrific, but they may have been breathing in a lot of particulate matter for a couple minutes there, an extended, if you will, amount of time, and they won't get asthma the next day. Same with people who have been evacuated from all these forest fires in our province. They're not going to all get asthma by the end of summer. And we in Winnipeg here having a lot more days with the warnings for poor air quality. We're not all of a us going to get asthma. It's just this prolonged period of time. It's like, okay, it's been, plenty of summers now, maybe 15, 10, 20 summers of really, really bad air quality. And you consistently are running outside at levels of 7, 8, 9, 10 plus air quality. That might be when that happens, when you have things like chronic inflammation or asthma or stuff like that. So it is really tricky to kind of pinpoint when that's going to happen. The risk is always there. But after one run, not very high risk for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, I'm going off track here. I'm
No,
totally off script now.
that's fine.
I just have so many questions about this.
I know it's a good topic.
Like just okay, so just talking about myself here. Like this is just kind of my personal experience so far this summer. I personally have not had any outdoor runs this summer where I have had symptoms during or after a run, right? Like even with the air quality statements and stuff like that, sometimes I've been in a situation where I don't have the ability to run indoors. And, I want to keep up with my training. I know we're all dedicated and I know that we can have a debate about whether or not that's a good idea, like kind of thing. But the reality is, right, a lot of us are still, unless we're really noticing symptoms, we're probably still going to go out and do the run. So is there a situation where like you could have had no symptoms this entire time, be running outdoors as per usual this whole time, feel totally fine, but low key there is significant damage happening and that's a risk? Or is it like, no, symptoms usually are going to preclude, a more serious outcome taking place? Or are there people who just are not that sensitive to the acute symptoms of it, but then might end up with a chronic lung issue?
So yeah, that's a super good question. Typically you'll have some kind of symptoms. Like your lungs,
Yeah, okay.
as fragile and delicate as they are, like they'll let you know when something's up,
If you're
right?
doing
Like
something silly,
when
yeah.
something is happening to them, they will say, hold it.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna cough. Like it's irritating to have a bunch of smoke in your lungs, right? It's gonna make your lungs mad. So typically, yeah, like the
like
best
when you're
way,
sitting around a bonfire.
yeah, right? Like okay, no, that's a fabulous example because when you're sitting at a campfire and the smoke starts going towards you, and if you're like me, you're just like a magnet for that stuff. And then
every time,
what do you do? Right? You're like,
you go bleh, and you move your chair away,
and you get up and you move, and it follows you, right? Like that. That's exactly it, right? So like your body's going to be like, not normal, hate this, goodbye. So typically, like you'll notice like you're coughing, the eyes, the shortness of breath. Or another way would definitely, even if you don't get the coughing, it would, because your like your oxygen levels are going to go down because the oxygen can't get into the blood because you've got all this particulate matter. And it's not like your lungs are like actually full of like ashes. It's this happens on like a microscopic level. You may find like, you may be asking, why can't I run as fast? Why can't I go as far or as push myself hard? Like what's the reason here? Might be like, actually, I've been running in really poor air quality. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that because, we're also pairing this time of year up with it being a lot hotter outside. There's a lot more humidity in the air along with the smoke. And so a lot of the, struggles with performance, not being able to generate the same paces or endurance or all those things, I mean, easily can be blamed on the heat. And to say, oh, it's the heat that's causing you to slow down or the heat that's causing the struggle because we expect that. Whereas, yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, a poor air quality health index could also be the thing that is contributing to those challenges.
Yeah, and it's tricky though, right? Because when you've got like those days where the air quality is just absolute, it's high. Like it is high as in like it's high on the scale. It's poor quality. Like a couple weekends ago, I was out in Kenora and just driving on the highway. I'm like, the visibility is low because of so much particulate matter, and I'm like, it looks cloudy. So if I were to go on a run, I'm like, it's not sunny, or maybe it is, and it's just that smoky. I don't know. Is it the particulate matter? Is it the heat? That would be really hard to pin, like, which one it is that would be like compromising your run, right? Like, you wouldn't really know unless you would have to do a really big study on running when it's only cold and smoky. Like, but then how do you do that? Like, 'cause normally if it's smoky, it's dry outside because it's hot, and it's like, it's so, they kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah, they really, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mm.
So that brings up another question. Sometimes this has just been my sort of personal experience with it this summer, is that sometimes you hear on the radio or you see on your social media that the, AQHI is high, it's, dangerous. You see that there's events being canceled and they're recommending that you don't go exercise outside, that kind of thing. And you look outside and you're like, but I can see the blue sky. And when I walk outside, I don't smell smoke in the air. And then on other days, it seems, again, this is just my perception. And, I'm not saying that this is everyone's experience, but on other days you go outside, you're like, oh man, like I can really, like, I can smell the smoke in the air today. But somehow the AQHI index is lower or better than it was the day before. And it doesn't seem to be a very strong correlation in my mind sometimes with how much you can smell the smoke in the air, how much you can see or not see how blue the sky is around you, and how much, like, how visible the smoke seems to be around you. Can you, like, comment on that at all? Or am I just like, maybe I'm just totally like out of pocket with this one?
No, no, no. This happens. This is a true thing. And I actually, this is fabulous. I loved researching this question because I'm like, why is it
Yeah.
like this? Because there's been
Yeah.
days I was out on the trail and I was like, the air quality health index says it's a 2, and I can like taste the smoke. And
Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
see across the lake, and I'm like, it's not 2 because like I could like wash the smoke off of me. So
Yeah.
I was like, we gotta figure this out because this is crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what this is it's basically like weather stations, but for air quality. So
Sure.
in Winnipeg, we have 3 stations. One is in the downtown area, one is on Scotia Street, and one is kind of in the St. Boniface industrial-ish area. So
Okay.
at those stations will gather a bunch of data about AQHI over a 3-hour period, and then they'll pop it into
Okay.
their formula for creating the number. It spits out the number of 5, 7, 8, whatever it may,
Yeah.
2, 1. So if it's downtown, kind of by Kildonan Park and St. B, but you live in Westwood, you might be just too far from the actual like data center to get a number
Okay.
that is reflective to where you are. Think of it like rain. You know those days where like on your phone it's like, "Ooh, it's 25 and sunny," and you look outside and you're like, "Monsoon." I see the
Yeah.
rain. The puddles are happening, the earthworms are out. Like you're like, "It's raining." But yeah, because the weather
Yeah.
station is like 1 hour that way, right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Air quality, the way they gather the information can be thought of the same kind of way, which I didn't know
Yeah.
until quite recently. Um, so the best way to kind of go about this, I would say, would be to take a look at your AQHI, and if it
Yeah.
says 4, but it's clearly 1 or it's clearly 9, use both your own intuition and personal
Okay.
observation plus the math.
Yeah.
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 Like, dude, that's what I would do.
Okay.
I would use both
Yeah.
because clearly you know when it's like too smoky for you, or if you're like, it's so smoky, I'm not even gonna like my run today. Maybe you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
maybe you do what all runners love to do, which is strength training. No. And you do your strength
Yeah.
training that day, or your mobility, or
Yeah.
your stretching session, or recovery day, right? Like you do
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
instead of your long run or your tempo run. But easier said than done, I know. I know.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? I mean, living here in Manitoba, we're exposed to extremely cold weather in the winter as well. And from a lung health perspective, right, getting out when it's that extremely cold outside for
That's
a
okay.
long time of hard workouts, like also isn't highly recommended. So I really do strongly encourage people who live here with our extremes of weather to have an indoor solution for running, whether that's a treadmill, whether that's an indoor track, whether that's doing more cross training. Like I just think that, and I know that there's a tremendous amount of privilege that comes with that because not everyone can afford those things or has
Yeah.
access to those things. But, I do think that it's worthwhile if we want to be really consistent with our training to have options other than just needing to go outside sometimes, because unfortunately, this is the reality that we're living in with our climate, and, not just our climate here in Manitoba, but climate change and the impact it's having on wildfires and stuff. Like, this is the way things are now. And it seems to be either like risk your lung health, long term lung health, and maybe shorten your career as a runner, or sometimes stay inside.
Yeah, it it's really it's become very like risk versus benefit here with
Yeah.
in this season of wildfires and trying to run outside. And it's tricky because our summers are short and running
Hmm.
outside is a lot of people love to do it, like myself included. A
Yeah.
lot of us prefer running outside. I know, like, get me on a trail, I'm so happy. Put me on a treadmill, I'll do like 20% of the run I wanted to do just because I'm like, I hate this treadmill so
Yep.
much, and my
Yep.
mental game can't get behind it. And
Yeah.
like you mentioned, the privilege of being like, well, I'll just go on the treadmill or the track, or maybe I'll swim in the
Yeah.
indoor pool. Like, not everyone has these options, but
Yeah. Yep.
and people want to still work on their cardio health. But then, if you want to work on your cardiorespiratory health, is running outside in poor air quality the best way to do it? Probably not. But then
Yep.
again, what's the option? Like, it becomes
Yeah.
very, very tricky. And it'll boil down to just you knowing your body and your lungs and what you and doing your own like little mini assessment before you go out
Yeah.
into the outdoors to run. It'll just come down to having enough information and then you making your personal choice.
Yeah. And two, this is another big question that's been on my mind lately is, you know, even though like this summer we've had a number of days and a number of stretches of days where
Hmm.
the air quality health index has been high or bad. Um, what's it? Severe,
Yeah, they use terms like
low,
low
moderate,
risk, moderate risk, high risk, very high
high
risk.
risk. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just make sure I got my terminology right. High risk. But in the grand scheme of like my 35 years on this planet, it's a relatively small exposure, right? It's a relatively small amount of time that I have been exposed to poor air quality. And generally, for the rest of the year, we have very good air quality here in Manitoba, right? We have, I think this is still the case. They used to always talk about how we have like some of the cleanest air in the country,
Mhm.
as far as like pollution and stuff goes. So, you know, if we're looking at long term health risks and what are the impacts of poor air quality on long term lung health, there's probably, and of course, please correct me if I'm wrong on this. There's probably a big difference between us for a few weeks or months here in the summer having, some exposure to poor air quality, but the rest of the time and the rest of our lives has been okay, versus someone who is running consistently in a place where pollution in the air is a chronic problem all throughout the year, like in, bigger major cities, more industrialized areas. Is that like fair, or is it, you know just because it's worse for other people doesn't make it okay, or like, you know what I mean?
No, I totally
Like,
know what you mean, and yeah, that's a fair thing to say.
stop trying to like justify yourself,
No,
Steph.
no, that's a fair statement. I mean, it is it's so tricky because
Yeah.
obviously it's like, yeah, we've only had like this one summer of kind of really kind of the air quality health index has gone up to those like very high risk. It's only this
Mm-hmm.
summer, but who knows what next summer will bring. That being
Yes.
said, you've lived on this planet for how 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever. And this has been kind of the first, well, I'm in my early 30s, and this is kind of the only summer I remember that's been like kind of like red flag for the air quality. I mean, we've had always BC, the smoke coming in from BC or from California wildfires, but our
Yep.
province got hit, our personal little province got hit especially hard this year. So it if you're constantly being exposed to it, like if you live in the heart and soul of Los Angeles or a big city like New York, those huge cities, they're going to get more smog. So yeah, you will be at a higher risk on your normal day, whereas we
Mm-hmm.
live here in the prairies typically won't. But these
Yeah.
long-term health effects, I do want to talk about that because this is more, this is like important. In my professional opinion. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I read so many studies. I've read lots of studies about this previous to being invited on this lovely podcast. And then I dove back into them to prepare for this. And yeah, there was a study they performed on over, it was in 2009. So our air quality on this earth is, I'm confident to say that's probably gotten even worse since 2009 overall.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
it was done on data on over 1 million people. It was a long-term longevity study, and what it showed was that there was marked, like significant cardiovascular and respiratory mortality in the context of air pollutants. What that
Mm-hmm.
kind of means in not big science words is air quality can affect your years of life, how many years you have in your life. So there is like death is kind of can be a result of bad air quality or poor air quality. Some really
Yeah. Yeah.
specific long-term effects it can have on people is an increased risk of heart attacks,
Mm.
accelerated development of plaque in your arteries,
Mm-hmm.
increase in systemic inflammation markers, increase in lung cancer, increase in the impairment of development of lungs in children, because your
Mm-hmm.
lungs are a really special organ. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an RT, but maybe I am.
Yeah.
Your they're incredible. Like when you're born, your lungs they're the last thing to develop before you're born, and they're the first organ to start to like compromise in your body. Your peak
Mm-hmm.
perfect years of your life where your lungs are functioning at their absolute perfectness is from 8 years old to your mid 20s. After
Okay.
that, your lungs slowly, and when I say slowly, I mean like at like slower than a snail pace, start
Mm-hmm.
to slowly like not get compromised, but they've stopped developing and they're on their downward now for the rest of
Mm-hmm.
life,
Mm-hmm.
which is why
Yeah.
it's really important to keep your heart healthy because your heart will compensate for that. I
Okay.
know. So to not have those years where your lungs are still developing from birth to 8 years old, if you're breathing in really poor air quality, you're setting yourself up for failure there. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in a way that, yeah, I realize I live in Canada. It's a privilege to have beautiful air. I mean, not everyone gets that, but it
Yep.
has been proven that children who live in cities with poor air quality, they develop more asthma, more chronic obstructive
Mm-hmm.
pulmonary disease, more lung cancers, and overall have
Okay.
a higher mortality rate. Their life
Okay.
expectancy in those countries is a lot lower, which is
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
unfortunate because we are so
Yeah.
lucky to have really nice air here.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you remind me what was the level of the AQHI where like children should not be not just not doing strenuous exercise outdoors, but like where really children should not be outdoors at all?
Yeah, so children are in that high risk group
Yeah.
because their lungs are still developing. Not that all children have asthma or anything like that. It's because
Mhm.
their lungs are still developing, and they're in their prime, right? Those like when you're 8 years old, 10 years old, in your teens, they're in their prime. You want to keep them in as prime as long as you can.
Yeah.
So children should not be outside when the AQHI is in a high level. So that would be 7 or higher.
Okay.
Kids should be inside or limit time outside. And if they start coughing or, eyes, nose, anything like that, that's a good indicator that, okay, we've reached the limit of outside time now. We need to take a break.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, it comes back to doing that assessment, knowing your body, and checking in with what is tolerable for me versus not. What are my health risks and all of these other factors? But having these systems in place can really help give us an additional piece of information. But we also have to look outside. And do you find like the amount that you can smell the smoke in the air is a reliable indicator of the AQHI? Like if you go outside and you say, "Whoa, it really smells smoky," like that is helpful information, or does that seem like it is a different type of particulate that is causing the air to smell like smoke versus what is in our lungs causing problems? Or is it the same thing in the air that's causing those two things to occur?
Yeah. So if it smells smoky outside, the particulate matter that will be getting into your lungs and your bloodstream, it will be smoke. Like it will be bits of ashes and soot, micron level. I've just been, this is my own little study I've been doing. So it's not peer reviewed or anything. Unless you consider my husband to be peer reviewing, but that might have a bias. I've noticed like when I leave work, I'm like, man, it smells like smoke. And then I'll just check my phone, the weather app, and I'll be like, oh yeah, AQHI is a little higher today. Or I'm like, wow, it's super clear. Check the AQHI. Oh yeah, it's 2 or 1. So based on my personal observations, again, random sampling was done here or anything like that. It's not reviewed. I would say like the smokier it is, the higher the AQHI will be, which makes sense because if it's smokier, there's more particles in the air.
Yeah. And I wonder too, like, again, I'm so far off topic here, but like, how high in the atmosphere versus low the smoke is. Like, is that another thing? Like, we were on a camping trip a couple weeks ago, and you could see, like, if you were looking across the field, you could see that the visibility was poor. Like you could see the smoke hanging out down by the ground, and you could smell it very strongly. It was very noticeable. But if you looked up, you could see how beautiful blue and clear the sky was. Whereas like other times, it seems as though the smoke is high in the air and like covering the blue sky, but down below seems like, you know what I mean? Like, does the smoke move up and down like that?
I even know what weekend you're talking about because I noticed that too. I was like, the smoke is so low, and it was like low, and then above the smoke was like a beautiful clear day. It was very weird.
Yeah,
or the opposite.
It was.
When you like look out your window, like I am now. I'm like, it looks like a beautiful day, and then you go outside and you start looking up, and you're like, I can't see the top of the buildings downtown.
Yeah.
That's it. That's an interesting question, and I would boil that down to particulate size.
Okay.
How big are they? If they're like huge particles, and by huge I mean like 6 microns, they might be heavier. I know, huge particles, like tiniest little particle. They might be heavier, and then they're going to sit lower. Also, is it windy? What's the wind doing? Is it blowing it up? Is it picking it up? What's it doing? What's the weather? What's the weather doing? Right? There's a lot of like fluid factors.
Yeah, and probably things like air pressure too, right? And like, your barometric pressure. Let's just start saying weather words. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, barometric pressure.
I hope all of you guys listening can just like tell how out of my element I am right now.
We can talk about food too. Like,
oh my goodness. All right. So yes, okay, that all makes a lot of sense. And so, do you have any kind of final thoughts, suggestions, tips, things like that, not just for runners here in Manitoba who are currently being impacted by the wildfires, but for anyone else who might be listening outside of our area who is just impacted by poor air quality, whether that is from wildfires in their area or maybe it's pollution or anything like that. Like what advice do you have for people who still want to get out and run, but not totally destroy their lungs in the process?
yeah, for sure. So, my piece of advice are gather the information, and make the choice that is going to be best for you. So what I mean by that is take a look at your AQHI on I have an Apple phone, and I know that weather app on the Apple phone, it tells you the AQHI. So take a look at that. Take a look outside. Make the call that's best for you and your body and your training. And maybe if the AQHI is high and it looks smoky, but tomorrow it's supposed to be low and clear, maybe you bump your run a day. If you don't, you have the information in front of you. You know that AQHA is high. It smells like smoke. If you still want to run, that's your prerogative. That's your choice. Really good websites to get more resources are CanadaClimate.com. So it's basically just like the government of Canada's website, dealing with weather and climate, as well as recently Manitoba's website has really upped their game on air quality health index and what that means, what that looks like, and the health risks.
Yep.
Because I think our province has been so impacted by it this year. As well as the Canadian Lung Association website has a lot of good tips for lung protection and lung health. But I think overall, I would say as a respiratory therapist, as a runner, as someone who really also has seasonal allergies, if the AQHI is high, 7 or above, and you can push your run or find an alternative way to still do some kind of exercise, whether it's strength, cardio, whatever you have it be, I would recommend doing that. I have seen firsthand what lung disease looks like, what preventable lung disease looks like. And I personally would rather push my run a day or two than not have my lungs functioning as properly or as efficiently as they could for future runs.
Absolutely.
Because we might not always have a smoky summer, but this summer we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate you sharing some additional resources and places that people can get more information. And where can people follow along on your running journey and see what you're up to with all of your trail runs and competitions?
Yes. Okay. So I am part of Manitoba Association of Trail Runners. It is a fabulous community of trail runners in Manitoba. And wow, they have the best events. It is so accessible. You do not have to be fast or slow or a seasoned runner. This can be the first run you've ever done in your life. And they will welcome you with open arms and snacks. Dietitian, getting back to dietitian.
Our favorite things. There we go. We did talk about food today.
Favorite things. So I'm part of that. MATR, Matter. Follow them on Instagram, Manitoba Association of Trail Runners. They have trail runs. They have runs in the city. They have all kinds of information on running and environment. It's amazing. I love the group of people. It's a great, great way to dip your toes into running if you want to, or you can follow along just on everyone's trail adventures. And yeah, there's some pictures of me on there looking good on top of Garbage Hill, doing my weekly hill training up there. So you can find me at the snack table for sure, 100%. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Deanna, for agreeing to be on this episode and share your wonderful expertise and all of your professional thoughts and your personal observations and N of one scientific studies that you've been doing. I really appreciate taking the time to
yes.
to educate all of us, and I look forward to connecting again in the future as a fellow runner here in Manitoba.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. It was such fun. I loved it.
Oh, wonderful. All right. That is it for this week's episode. I hope you all found it as informative and educational as I did. And, we can refer back to it and refresh ourselves as needed. And so that's it for this week's episode. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you right back here next week. Bye for now. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.